The wind howled like a wounded beast, tearing through the vast, icy wilderness with relentless fury. Snow lashed against the windows of the secluded cabin, its single occupant barely stirring from his place by the dying fire. Daniel Hayes sat motionless, his gaze locked on the flickering embers, his mind a prisoner to memories he couldn't escape. Months ago, his world had shattered. A tragic accident had stolen his wife and unborn child, leaving him adrift in a sea of grief. The city, with its noise and suffocating sympathy, had become unbearable, so he had fled to the solitude of the northern frontier, where the silence was absolute and the pain had no witnesses. But no matter how far he ran, the ghosts of his past followed. Tonight, however, something different stirred the icy void. A sound, raw, agonizing, pierced the storm's deafening wail. Daniel's blood ran cold. It was no ordinary cry. It was the sound of suffering, of desperation. He hesitated for only a moment before pushing himself up, grabbing his heavy coat and flashlight, and stepping into the merciless night. Cold struck him like a hammer, stealing his breath as he moved forward, boots crunching against the deep snow. He followed the sound, heart pounding, senses sharpened by instinct. The wind threatened to blind him, but then, through the swirling white, he saw it. A massive silhouette loomed near the tree line, a grizzly. Daniel froze, every muscle coiled with tension. But then, through the chaos of the storm, he saw what lay at her feet, a small, unmoving form, barely visible beneath the snow. A cub. The mother bear lifted her head, eyes locking onto his, and in that instant, something primal passed between them. Fear, yes, but something more. A silent plea, a fragile thread of trust, spun from sheer desperation. Daniel took a slow step forward, his voice barely a whisper over the wind. "I won't hurt it!" The bear did not move, but neither did she charge. It was all the permission he needed. He crouched, careful, deliberate, reaching out to the tiny creature. Its fur was stiff with frost, its breath shallow. It whimpered as he scooped it into his arms, its small body feather-light against the weight of his decision. Turning, he trudged back toward the cabin, every step a battle against the storm. Behind him, the mother bear followed, silent, watching, trusting. Inside, warmth enveloped them as Daniel shut the door, sealing out the tempest. He moved quickly, laying the cub on a thick blanket near the fire. His hands, once trained to heal, now trembled as he examined the injury. A twisted limb, a deep gash. It wouldn't survive the night without help. He worked with the precision of a man who had once saved lives for a living, cleaning the wound, setting the tiny bones, wrapping them with the last of his medical supplies. The cub whimpered but did not resist, its strength nearly spent. As he secured the bandages, his breath hitched, memories flooding his mind. Nights spent tending to patients, his wife watching from the doorway, a hand resting on the swell of their unborn child, a future stolen before it could begin. Daniel swallowed hard, focused. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, a fragile peace settled over the room. He sat beside the cub, watching over it as the fire crackled softly. The weight of loneliness he had carried for so long felt just a little lighter. Dawn arrived, painting the snow in hues of gold and silver. The cub stirred, blinking up at him with glassy eyes. Relief flooded Daniel's chest. It had made it through the night. A shadow passed across the frosted window. He turned, heart pounding. Mother bear stood just beyond the tree line, waiting. The storm had passed, but her patience would not last forever. He had to return what was hers. With gentle hands, he lifted the cub, wrapping it in a blanket. Stepping outside, he braced against the cold, making his way toward the waiting mother. She tensed as he approached, muscles rippling beneath thick fur. He knelt, setting the cub down between them. For a moment, silence. Then, the cub let out a feeble cry. The mother bear stepped forward, sniffing it, nudging it carefully. A soft rumble, relief, recognition. Without hesitation, she scooped her child close, enveloping it in the warmth of her massive form. She turned to Daniel once more. Their eyes met, and then she was gone, vanishing into the endless white, the cub safe at her side. Daniel stood there long after they disappeared, the wind whispering around him. The ache in his chest was still there, but now it was something else, something quieter, something lighter. He turned back toward the cabin, his footprints the only mark upon the untouched snow. For the first time in forever, He did not feel alone. Days passed, but the encounter lingered in his mind. Daniel found himself standing at the edge of the woods each morning, scanning the tree line, as if hoping to catch another glimpse of the mother bear. He began walking farther into the wilderness, drawn by an unspoken connection, a need to understand something he couldn't quite name. On the fourth morning, he found tracks. They were fresh, cutting through the snow toward the river. He followed them, his breath clouding in the cold air, his heart pounding not with fear, but with anticipation. And then, he saw her. The mother bear stood at the river's edge, watching the icy current. The cub was beside her, stronger now, its fur thick and full, its eyes bright. Daniel stayed where he was, watching. He had no right to interfere, no claim to this moment, but still, the mother bear turned, meeting his gaze one final time. She remembered, and then she was gone, slipping into the forest with her cub, leaving Daniel with nothing but the sound of the river and the faintest sense that somehow he had been forgiven. As he turned back toward the cabin, the weight of the past felt a little lighter. The wilderness no longer felt empty, and for the first time in a long time, the future did not seem so distant, so impossible. It was waiting for him, just beyond the trees. As the days turned to weeks, Daniel felt a shift within himself. He spent more time outside, learning the land that had once felt so foreign. He tracked the river, discovered fresh game trails, and even stumbled upon remnants of an old, forgotten homestead nestled within the trees. The wilderness, once a place of exile, now felt like something else, a home. One evening, as he sat by the fire, he found himself writing. Not just thoughts or fragmented memories, but something more intentional. A journal of his days, his encounters, his slow return to life. He wrote about the bear, the cub, the storm that had almost taken them all. He wrote about grief, about healing, about the way the wind no longer felt so lonely. And as the flames flickered and the ink dried, Daniel realized something profound. He was not lost anymore.